Hello, everyone. This is Donna and Janna of Heart Healing Conversations, where we talk about the messy parts of life, the painful parts of life, and try and, help you feel not so alone and give you some tips on navigating these times in your life. And today, Janna and I were having a little bit of a conversation before we started this recording about how in both of our lives, we have many things going on right now, and they're not like big events like a divorce, a job loss, moving, a death, but there are other things that are happening in our life. Family health issues, kids getting ready to launch into their, life after high school, and other types of things that we're navigating. And I think many times we forget that those lead to grief. And so often we just keep trying to push forward and ignore those feelings that all these events are bringing up. But the fact of the matter is, it does cause emotional pain, whether it's something that's going on right now or we're anticipating something happening. It does affect us emotionally. And so we wanted to kind of share a conversation about that today.
Yeah, it seems to be kind of the way of the world right now. All of us are fighting not just one or two things. We got 10 or 20 on our tray and we don't recognize that as being grief or as something that kind of pushes us to the next level of being completely stressed out or not being able to think straight to, hey, I need to put this on my calendar. I need to make dinner tonight. Or, oh gosh, I forgot to take something out for dinner. Or it's, it gets to be crazy. And it's super important to recognize how each little thing can pile on and create stress and just make us blow up if we don't learn to recognize, hey, something's off, I'm not feeling right, and take a few minutes to kind of decompress and figure out what it was that set us off. I know just here, like you said, talking about getting kids ready, we got two graduating and one's going to go to the military, one's not sure what she wants to do yet. And so we got two ends of the spectrum. One's kind of in freak out mode, trying to get everything figured out, and the other one's just like, I don't know. And so you have not only that to deal with here, but also anticipating, okay, well, what happens after he gets to boot camp and what happens at graduation? How do you plan trips out there for this? How do you get everything in place and fitting your calendar, your schedule, your life without having the certainty of dates to put on a calendar or like my little guy who's been struggling with allergies. We never know when something small like that is going to come up and just cause stress. I mean, for him,
Mm.
he's struggled so much with illness that it's always a red flag for me when he gets the sniffles or something, because I'm so worried that something more extreme is going to happen. Like, oh, great, is there going to be a fever with this? Are we going to have seizures? Um, it's so hard to navigate feeling those overwhelmed feelings by something that's simple. Um, I know, again, like talking about his allergies, I recognize that, oh great, if something's happening, it's starting to set me off and makes me a little bit more anxious. I actually held a conversation with the kids about this yesterday and how this works with your brain. Okay, so I'm already feeling overwhelmed, and then now you're running around in circles screaming right here in the living room, and you've got the radio on and you've got the TV on. And I'm like, too much noise is now adding to it and making me feel a little bit more overwhelmed. And then it's, oh, I forgot to make dinner. What are we going to have for dinner? And the more those things pile up just that simply, it just gets to a point where you want to shut down and hide or just blow up and get angry with people instead of actually stepping back and recognizing what it was that caused that to happen. And so
Mm.
going through this method, learning how to actually stop and take that pause and think about what emotions am I feeling, what made me feel this way. It's been amazing.
Yeah, I mean, tools to help us navigate stressful times are really important. And I want to stress right now, in case you don't listen to this whole episode, if you're going through things in life and you feel overwhelmed, reach out to Jana or myself. You can book a call with us. They're complimentary. We just like to, you know, allow you to be heard, allow you to talk about what's going on. It's really important that we all have support around us. But, with all these things, we might not always say, oh, well, this is grief. A lot of things just cause stress, right? And overwhelm. Um, and when we're stressed, when we're overwhelmed, when we're grieving, our ability to concentrate is reduced dramatically. And this is when we forget things. We have accidents, whether they're car accidents or, we trip and fall where normally that doesn't happen. We're not very coordinated. We're tired because we're not sleeping well. Maybe we're not eating the same. Because many of us, when we're stressed, we either overeat or we choose not to eat because our stomachs are bothering us, that kind of thing. I mean, Jana and I were talking before this conversation that I thought I had a meeting with someone at 11:30 today. And at 11:22, I jump on Zoom and realize, oh, I'm 22 minutes late. Um, and so I'm trying to call this individual, and they finally get back to me and said, oh, no, it's next week. But for some reason, like my brain wasn't putting it together that, oh, yeah, this meeting isn't today. And that's what I mean, the lack of ability to concentrate because I've had other things going on. Um, we're also getting ready to launch a child into the military. And so there's what if this, what if that? How is this going to go? And that's stressful. And we've had family health issues. We have a family member that's going to have surgery soon. So all these things take our attention, and they should because they're important. It's our family. Um, but it doesn't always feel good because we're not sure what's going to happen in the future and it's going to create change. Um, and we don't always know how to navigate it really well. And so it is important to have tools. It's important to have support around us, people that can just listen as we talk about what we're experiencing, because we often keep so much inside. Like, I don't know about you, Jana, but I go to bed sometimes and all of a sudden, like, my creativity increases when I go to bed. I'm thinking about all these things for my business, but I'm also ruminating on things sometimes, not always, but sometimes. And so I've learned, like, okay, that's not how I'm going to sleep. I have to get up and I have to write things out to get them off my mind, get them out of my brain, and so I can let them go. And so that's a tip that I really recommend for people is to use that journaling because once you write it down, it's a little bit easier to let it go for right now so you can focus on something else.
Yeah, journaling has definitely been one of my big safeties too. Um, Not because I can't talk to people about a lot of the stuff that's going on, but sometimes it's a little easier to talk myself through what's going on and how I'm truly feeling about the situation by writing it down and just kind of letting whatever comes to me come out on paper. Sometimes I don't even recognize the pathway that will lead me to, what started as, oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed because my child is sick, turns out to, last week, the garbage man showed up and tipped things over and made a mess and I had to clean that up and I was in a hurry and late. So it can get a lot more out, I think, than you expect it to. Um,
Mhm.
and I think another one that really is helpful for me is to change the smell in a room too when I'm feeling really overwhelmed and can't kind of get out of my brain and I'm overthinking, even if it's just grabbing a jar of essential oils and kind of underneath my nose to smell it, um, lighting a candle, whatever it is, even baking a new loaf of bread or something, just something about that change in smell instantly takes my mind to a better place so that I'm not overthinking all the little details that I need to stop overthinking.
Oh, yeah, exactly. It's so easy to get stuck in that circle, that rumination of, all the things that are going on and how am I going to navigate all this? This feels super uncomfortable and overwhelming. And, along with the journaling, an important question I think to ask ourselves is, okay, what are the feelings and emotions that are coming up? And when is the last time I felt this way?
Mm,
What does this remind me of? Um, when is the first time I felt this? Because most
yeah.
of the time that goes back to something in childhood. When I was
Mhm.
5 years old and, you know, mom asked me to do such and such, and, I didn't know how, and I felt overwhelmed, and she got upset with me, whatever it is, you know, there's usually our inner child that has some healing it needs to do. Um, and then, it comes up later in life, this unhealed version of ourself that we haven't been able to really look at and nurture, right? And so all these situations that are going on around us bring up those painful emotions.
Yeah, and it's so easy to not recognize those correlations. So I love that you mentioned that because that really does kind of deeper dive into, especially it can't tying it to, those bigger grief events that you haven't actually worked on. Um,
Mm.
so often we just are reaching for control when things get all messy, and that's such a great way to regain control a little bit in our mind is to find those connections and try to heal what started the problem so that we don't have to continue to circle back to this same thing again.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. One of the things that has helped me in some of the most difficult moments of my life is in my head reciting the serenity prayer. I love it. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference.
Mhm.
Because it doesn't feel good when we don't have control of something, when we don't know the outcome, when it feels scary, when it feels sad. But reminding ourselves what we do have control over, and we have control over ourselves. That's the only thing we have control over. And while that
Yeah.
doesn't always feel good, I mean, and especially like we're launching kids this year. When our kids are young, we have a lot more control over their life, right? Like we can control where they go, what they do, who they hang out with when they're younger. And then when they launch, we have no idea what's going on. We're worried about them, right? Because we love them. We want them to be safe, but we don't have control over whether they are or aren't. And so it's an important thing to remember during times in our life where there is a lot of change or transition is that we can control our thoughts. We can choose how we show up. And sometimes we have to navigate things at a minute by minute level instead of a day or a week. Just look at, well, let's get through this next minute when there's a lot of stress going on.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned, the Serenity Prayer. I know I actually have mine is just kind of a verse of one of my favorite songs. And so when I get extremely overwhelmed and things aren't working, I'll just recite it back over and over and over in my head until my body kind of releases and calms down a little bit so that I can actually recognize what it was I was doing or what I needed to do next. Um,
Mhm.
there are so many good ways to find things to help move forward, but it's important to recognize something is bothering us and take that time to actually, like you said, recite the prayer or recite the song so that you're giving yourself that space and saying, yes, I feel yucky at this point, and instead of just moving forward. Because I think, unfortunately, we've all moved forward just another time, so many times in our life that our nervous systems just can't take it anymore. So we again, reach out for that feeling of control. Like I have to have something that will help this stop. And I have to stop this spiral now. And so many of us don't know how to stop that spiral. And it is
Mhm.
truly something that you have to decide that's going to stop your spiral. So what works best for you may not work best for me. And it's
Right.
trial and error, but I do encourage our listeners to try and find something, whether it be, smells or journaling, anything. Just find something that kind of helps soothe you. It could even be going outside and, listening for bird sounds, listening for the water, depending on where you are, watching for trees and seeing if you can see the leaves move. Just the smallest thing can kind of help stop that trajectory of continuing further and further downhill.
Yeah, that vicious cycle that we get into, and then our thinking becomes very negative, and it's hard to get ourselves out of that. I love mantras as well, like, all is well, I am safe, things like that.
Yes.
Whatever like resonates with you as an individual, I think that's really important. But we can all think of some kind of mantra that can help us, stay a little bit more centered in these moments.
And sometimes, you know, unfortunately, as much as we try to do the better thing and try to get out of that spiral, unfortunately, sometimes we still stay in it. So at
Mhm.
that point, it's really important for us to have grace with ourselves and say, you know what, it's okay. I'm feeling this way. It's okay. Tomorrow's a new day.
Mhm. And I think, a good thing to bring up right now is not only giving grace to ourselves, but to other people, because let's just be honest, life is kind of hard right now. It's very expensive to live. The cost of things just keeps going up. Most people I've talked to that are in business for themselves are struggling. People, are having a hard time because it costs more to live. So, they can't spend a lot of money on self-care. And then, we have issues in our families and other areas of our life. So, I think it's important to be gentle with other people too, and remember that everyone is going through something, and we don't necessarily know what it is because most people don't talk about it. And, if you come across someone and, you ask them how they're doing and you can tell that they're not doing well, but they're trying to tell you that everything's fine, you know, maybe ask them some more questions. I've noticed lately you just seem like you're sad or something's on your mind, because most of us have been taught to just try and, man up and get through things and not share our emotions because we need to be strong for our children, for the rest of our family, for ourselves. But more than that, we need to be honest. We need to be able to express what's going on. And so if someone asks us or just makes a comment like, I've noticed you look like something's bothering you, or you look sad. Sometimes that just gives us the opening to start talking about what's really going on in our life.
Yeah, often too, because it's an uncomfortable feeling to actually talk about what's wrong. It's also okay to say, yeah, I've been a little sad, but I really don't want to talk about it right now, or something like that too, because sometimes if it doesn't feel like the right time or place to have that conversation, it kind of makes you feel a little yucky, like, oh, I don't know that I should be telling this person these details. And so it's a hard place to be in, but I can assure you, getting to where honestly you don't care necessarily what if it's comfortable for somebody else, like, if they ask how you are, I've kind of gotten to a point where if it's bad, it's a, you know what, I'm having a rough day, but I'm here. Most people are like, oh, okay, well, never mind. I don't want to talk about it then. And I'm okay with that because I know that I can take space for myself and step back and say, I'm having a bad day because and tomorrow will be better. Or, you know what, I dealt with this right now. I've journaled about it. And you know what? Let's change. Let's go outside. Let's go to the beach. Let's do something to put joy back in life instead of just focusing so much on what was taking me downhill.
Hmm.
Like you said, everybody in the world is going through so much. If you can just think about what's rolling through your head, I guarantee the person you're talking to has that much going through theirs too. We all have so much going on in the world, and we never get it to shut off either because we're on our phones scrolling through social media trying to shut down our own problems in our own brain. And what do all we're feeding it is everybody else's problems with the news and everything else that's going on. All we see is the negativity, and all that does is continue our swirl down.
Hmm. Yeah, that's so true. I mean, it's very important that we find ways to step away from those things that feel like they're weighing us down, the energy vampires of our life.
Uh,
You know, whether it's people who we spend time around and then we feel like, oh, I was in a good mood until I spent time with them, and now I just feel super grumpy, because we do pick up on people's energy. So whether it's people, like I said, or whether it's just being in different situations, I mean, we need to change our surroundings when we're feeling that way. I know since I work from home, I mean, my home is a very positive place, but sometimes I just need a change because I'm starting to feel like not creative. Um, Overwhelmed. And so, like, I go to our local little tea shop because I've always loved it. I've been going there for like 15 years. And I go in there and there's conversations going on, but yet for some reason I can focus and I have my cup of tea and it just feels peaceful. And it's not that there's anything wrong at home. It's just need a change of scenery sometimes. And I think, especially when we're going through incredibly difficult times in our life, you know, home or our work or wherever it is a reminder of those things that are bothering our thoughts, those things that are hurting our hearts. And so just that change of scenery can really create a boost in our mood and our, the way we're thinking.
yeah, absolutely. That's why I said mentioned going to the beach, even just going for a simple walk or
Hmm.
putting on your music and going and sitting outside and drinking your coffee on the deck versus, sitting inside. Even the smallest thing can help. I mentioned that to a friend the other day, it's been a while. How about you just take your dogs outside and take them for a quick walk outside? I'm sure they would like the fresh air too. Just something simple. That way you don't have to further your overwhelm. Like, oh, great, now I have to get in the car and I have to drive here. And then I got to take the dogs into the dog park and deal with the, pain dogs over there. And it doesn't have to swirl that way. You can find just one little simple thing to kind of help change the trajectory.
Yeah. So I want to leave everybody with this. I encourage you, I invite you to create some little rituals to do when life feels messy, when it feels overwhelming, when your heart is hurting. What are some things that you can do to take care of yourself, to take a pause, to step away, and kind of change the energy? Now, these don't have to be big things. They can be easy little things we do. Um, and it's not necessarily that these are going to heal the pain in your heart, but what they do is just give you a few minutes of being able to breathe and practice some self-care. So that is the homework for the week. Everybody think of at least one thing that they can do to nurture themselves. And we'd love it if you put comments below and let us know what those things are, because I think it's wonderful to share things with other people that they maybe hadn't thought about, right?
Absolutely. Some of the greatest ideas I've gotten from my own personal care have come from other people saying, well, why don't you try this? Or why don't you try that?
Yeah.
Sometimes in our grief, I think we lose track of how much we truly need that human connection. And this is a great place to help build more of that connection because that's why we're here. We don't want anybody to ever feel like they're alone. So, absolutely share your self-help, your self-care tips in the comments below.
Yeah, let's support one another and have a wonderful week. Let us know your thoughts, and we will see you next week. Take care, friends.
Thanks, everyone.